3 months after the Battle of the Belt, Earth was a different world. Every nation had unified under a single military command. Factories that once built cars now built warships. Scientists who once researched medicine now designed weapons. Children learned emergency procedures in school. Humanity had changed. They were no longer naive explorers hoping for friendly aliens. They were survivors who understood that the galaxy was dangerous and cruel. Dr. Hanna Bayek worked in a laboratory deep underground, surrounded by security that would make a military base jealous. She was analyzing data from captured Vaxar computers. What she found made her stop breathing. The Tri-Nexus Alliance had not just refused to help Earth. They had actively helped the Vaxar. 4 species provided intelligence on human defenses. They gave the enemy star charts showing Earth's colonies. They told the Vaxar where humanity was weakest. It was not neglect. It was conspiracy. 4 species had tried to genocide humanity. Hanna brought the evidence to Admiral Kim. He looked at the data for a long time. Then he called a meeting of Earth's unified government. What happened in that meeting was classified, but everyone saw the result. Earth was going to war. Not defensive war, offensive war, the kind of war designed to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. The plan was called Operation Nemesis. 4 battle groups, 4 targets. All attacks would happen simultaneously to prevent a coordinated alliance response. Captain Ji-Woo Park was given command of Task Force Indomitable. Her target was the Keltheran Confederacy, the insect-like species that had provided the Vaxar with detailed intelligence on human defensive positions. Because of them, Mars had fallen quickly. Because of them, 50,000 colonists were dead. Ji-Woo did not need motivation. She had plenty of rage. Her strategy was not to kill Keltheran soldiers. It was to destroy their economy. The Keltherans valued efficiency and productivity above all else. Ji-Woo would make being humanity's enemy the most inefficient decision they ever made. Task Force Indomitable struck mining platforms first, always with warnings 5 minutes before attack. The Keltherans could evacuate, but they lost valuable infrastructure, mining equipment worth billions, processing stations that took years to build. All destroyed. The Keltherans sent their defense fleet to protect their assets. Ji-Woo drew them into a dense nebula where human sensors were superior. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Keltheran defense fleet was destroyed. Ji-Woo broadcast a message to all Keltheran worlds. Simple words. Cold truth, you helped them kill our children. Now you pay the price. Admiral Kim personally led the campaign against the Yish Trade Collective. The Yish were merchants who controlled major hyperspace trade routes. They had provided logistical support to the Vaxar, allowing the attack fleet to reach Earth quickly. Kim's strategy was simple. Blockade their central hub station. Cut off all trade. Watch their economy collapse. The Yish tried negotiation first. They offered money, resources, favorable trade agreements. Kim refused everything. They tried military force. Their attack fleet was modern and well-equipped. It did not matter. Human ships were built by people who had stared at extinction and laughed. The Yish fought for profit. Humans fought for revenge. The battle lasted 12 hours. The entire Yish attack fleet was destroyed. Kim's losses were minimal. He broadcast his own message to the Yish worlds. You chose profit over conscience. Learn the cost. The Moravian assembly was different. They were amphibious beings, generally peaceful, who lived in massive underwater cities. They had been manipulated by a hawkish political faction that feared human expansion. Dr. Beck led a covert operation. Not military, intelligence. She exposed the conspiracy to the Moravian public. She showed them communications between their government and the Vaxar. She revealed how their leaders had helped plan the attack on Mars. The Moravian population was horrified. They were a democracy. They had not been told about their government's actions. Protests erupted across their homeworld. The hawkish government fell in a bloodless revolution. The new Moravian government immediately contacted Earth, begging for peace. They offered reparations, full cooperation, intelligence sharing. Admiral Kim accepted, but with conditions. The Moravians would provide intelligence on all alliance activities. They would support Earth in future diplomatic negotiations.
And they would never forget what happened when you betrayed humanity. The Krell Commonwealth was the hardest target.
They were technologically advanced with strong military traditions. Their homeworld was heavily fortified. They refused to surrender the government officials who had conspired with the Vaxar. Kim gave them one chance. Hand over the conspirators or watch your world burn. The Krell refused. They were proud warriors. They would not submit to threats from a species they considered primitive. The battle for Krelios Prime was brutal. Human forces accepted terrible losses to break through orbital defenses. Ships were destroyed. Thousands of soldiers died. But humanity kept pressing forward. When they finally broke through, Kim did not bombard the planet. He landed ground forces. The Krell evacuated their cities and prepared to fight. What followed was a month-long campaign that horrified the galaxy. Human soldiers used tactics from every war Earth had ever fought. Tactics that the civilized galaxy considered barbaric. Ambushes, psychological warfare, attacking supply lines, fighting in cities where civilians lived. The Krell fought honorably. They formed battle lines. They challenged enemies to direct combat. They followed rules of engagement. Humans ignored those rules. They fought to win. Eventually, facing complete military defeat, the Krell High Command surrendered. The terms were harsh. War crime trials for the conspirators, heavy reparations, military restrictions, human occupation forces. But Kim made sure the occupation was fair. Human soldiers treated Krell civilians with respect. They helped rebuild damaged infrastructure. They protected the innocent while punishing the guilty. It was a lesson. Humans could be ruthless, but they could also be merciful. Attack them and you face destruction. Surrender honestly, and you might find unexpected allies. The Tri-Nexus Alliance watched in shock as 4 member species were crippled or humiliated in less than 6 months. Emergency sessions were called. Some species argued for immediate military action against Earth. Others urged caution. The debate continued until Dr. Bayek made a broadcast to the entire alliance. She did not threaten. She educated. She showed them human history. Thousands of years of warfare, from ancient battles with swords and spears, to nuclear weapons that could destroy continents. She showed them how humans had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near-extinction events. Then she showed them what Earth had become. Shipyards building warships at incredible speed, weapons research that frightened even human scientists, a population united by rage and determination. Her final message was simple. We tried to join your galaxy in peace. You chose war. This is what war with humans looks like. The question now is what comes next. Choose wisely. The broadcast went viral across the galaxy. Some species were terrified. Others were angry. But everyone understood the message. Humanity was no longer a weak species begging for acceptance. They were a military power that had proven they could hurt anyone who threatened them. And they had shown they were willing to use any weapon, any tactic, any sacrifice necessary to survive. The galaxy had wanted to make an example of Earth. Instead, Earth had made an example of the galaxy. Captain Jiwoo Park returned to Earth after the Keltheran campaign. She was exhausted, haunted by the things she had done. She had destroyed cities from orbit, killed soldiers who were just following orders, done terrible things for what she believed was a righteous cause. One night she met with Dr. Bayek in a quiet cafe. Jiwoo asked a question that had been bothering her. Are we the monsters now? Bayek was quiet for a long time. Then she answered, maybe, but we are alive monsters. They tried to make us extinct. We made them afraid. Perhaps that is the only language the galaxy understands. Jiwoo thought about Mars, about Daejin, about all the innocent people who died because the galaxy thought humanity was weak. She decided that being alive was better than being honorably dead. The galaxy was learning, slowly, painfully, but learning. Never underestimate the species that refuses to die. The Battle of Luna lasted 16 hours. When it was over, the space around Earth's moon looked like a graveyard. Shattered hulls drifted in the darkness. Bodies floated among the debris. Both human and Vaxar blood stained the void. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the casualty reports. Of the 47 ships Earth had sent into battle, only 17 survived. Over 30,000 human sailors were dead, but they had destroyed or disabled over 200 Vaxar warships. The enemy had retreated. It was a victory. It felt like defeat. Dr. Hannah Bayek worked in the captured Vaxar cruiser, examining their technology. The ship smelled wrong. Everything was designed for beings larger and stronger than humans. The controls were in a language nobody could read. But technology spoke a universal language if you knew how to listen. She found what she was looking for in the ship's database: star charts, fleet positions, supply routes, and something else. Something that made her heart stop. The Vaxar Second Armada. Over 1,000 ships, already on their way to finish what the First Fleet had started. Hana ran the numbers 3 times, hoping she had made a mistake. She had not. The Second Armada would arrive in 3 weeks. Earth could not survive another battle like Luna. They had lost too many ships, too many people. This time there would be no miracle. She brought the data to Admiral Kim. He looked at the numbers for a long time without speaking. Finally, he said something that surprised her. Good. That gives us 3 weeks to prepare. Lieutenant Jiwoo Park had been rescued from Mars along with 3,000 other survivors. Most of the colonists were dead. The dome cities were ruins. Mars, humanity's first successful colony, had become a tomb. Jiwoo did not sleep well anymore. When she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of people she could not save. She heard the screams of children as the domes shattered. Every night she woke up gasping, reaching for a weapon that was not there. A week after Luna, she was called to Admiral Kim's office. She expected a debriefing, maybe reassignment to Earth. Instead, Kim offered her a promotion and a mission. We need intelligence on the Second Armada. The Vaxar have a staging base on Titan. We are sending a team to infiltrate it. You have experience surviving against impossible odds. I need you to do it again. Jiwoo looked at the mission profile. 30 soldiers against 10,000 Vaxar troops. The survival probability was listed as less than 5%. Most people would call it suicide. Jiwoo called it a chance for revenge. She accepted immediately. While Jiwoo trained for her mission, Dr. Beck worked on weapons. Earth's military had always focused on defense and peacekeeping. Now they needed weapons that could kill, really kill. The kind of weapons that made politicians nervous and ethicists resign in protest. Nobody was protesting anymore. Fear and anger had replaced moral debates. Every human alive had lost someone in the attacks. Every city had memorial walls covered in names. The question was not whether to use terrible weapons. The question was whether those weapons would be enough. Hana designed biological weapons targeting Vaxar genetics, viruses that would make their bodies destroy themselves. She designed nanites that could disassemble metal at the molecular level. She designed psychological weapons that would drive enemy soldiers insane with fear. At night, she wondered if she was becoming a monster. In the morning, she remembered Mars and kept working. The mission to Titan launched on a cold Tuesday morning. Jiwoo led 30 soldiers, each one a volunteer. They knew the odds. They went anyway. The insertion went wrong from the start. Vaxar sensors detected their ship before they could land. Enemy fighters swarmed them like angry hornets. The pilot, a woman named Eun-young with steady hands and a calm voice, kept them alive for 7 minutes. Then a plasma bolt hit the engine. They crashed into Titan's methane ocean. The impact killed 15 soldiers instantly. The survivors dragged themselves from the wreckage and onto a frozen shore. Jiwoo counted heads. 15 dead, 3 more too injured to continue. That left 12 soldiers for a mission planned for 30. They started walking. Titan was a frozen hell. The temperature was negative 170 degrees. The atmosphere was poisonous. Their suits kept them alive, but barely. Every step was a fight against the cold and the terrain. Vaxar patrols hunted them. The enemy had thermal sensors, air support, and superior numbers. Jiwoo's team had experience and desperation. They used every trick human soldiers had learned over thousands of years of warfare. Ambushes, false trails, playing dead among actual corpses. By the time they reached the Vaxar base, only 7 soldiers remained. The base was enormous, carved into Titan's icy crust. Thousands of Vaxar soldiers moved through its corridors. Ships came and went from landing pads. Getting inside seemed impossible. Jiwoo studied the base for 2 days looking for weakness. She found it in Vaxar arrogance. They did not expect attacks. They did not post many guards. Why would they? This was their territory. Humans were barely capable of reaching Titan, let alone attacking a fortified base. They infiltrated during a shift change, wearing stolen armor taken from dead Vaxar soldiers. The armor did not fit well. Jiwoo's team looked wrong if anyone looked closely. But nobody did. The Vaxar saw armor and assumed friendly. They made it to the command center. A programmer named Hyunwoo started downloading the database while the others set up defensive positions. They had maybe 10 minutes before someone noticed the security breach. They got 5. Alarms screamed. Blast doors slammed shut. Vaxar soldiers flooded the corridors. Jiwoo's team formed a defensive circle in the command center and prepared to die. The fighting was savage. Vaxar soldiers were bigger and stronger, but humans were meaner. They fought with knives when they ran out of bullets. They used furniture as weapons. They broke enemy bones with their bare hands. Hyunwoo kept downloading while his teammates died around him. One by one they fell. A soldier named Sung-min took a plasma bolt to the chest while protecting the computer terminal. A woman named Yoonji held a doorway alone for 3 minutes before being overwhelmed. Finally, the download completed. Hyunwoo looked at Jiwoo. They both knew escape was impossible. Too many Vaxar soldiers. Too few bullets. But they could still hurt the enemy. Dae-jin Lee, the youngest soldier on the team, had an idea. The base had a fusion reactor. If they overloaded it, the explosion would destroy the entire facility. Thousands of Vaxar soldiers dead. The Second Armada's staging base gone. Jiwoo transmitted the stolen data to Earth while Dae-jin worked on the reactor. The transmission took precious minutes. Minutes bought with blood as her team held the command center against impossible odds. When the data was sent, only Jiwoo and Dae-jin remained alive. The reactor was ready. Dae-jin found a single escape pod in the back of the command center. Big enough for one person. He shoved Jiwoo inside before she could protest. She fought him, but he was stronger. He sealed the pod door and activated the launch sequence. Through the porthole, Jiwoo watched Dae-jin smile at her. He was only 19 years old. Then he turned and walked back toward the reactor controls. The pod launched. Seconds later, Titan's surface exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. The Vaxar base was gone. 10,000 enemy soldiers were dead, and Jiwoo was alone floating in the void, crying for the friends she had lost. Back on Earth, Dr. Beck received Jiwoo's transmission. The intelligence was everything they needed. Battle plans, ship specifications, and most importantly, the location of the planet cracker weapons the Vaxar planned to use on Earth. Admiral Kim studied the data for hours. Then he called his commanders together and presented a plan so dangerous that several officers tried to resign rather than follow it. Kim refused their resignations. He needed everyone. Because Earth was not going to run. Earth was not going to hide. When the Vaxar Second Armada arrived, humanity would be waiting. And this time, the galaxy would learn what happens when you threaten the survival of a species that has been fighting wars since before it had written language. The asteroid belt had always been a frontier. Miners worked the rocks, searching for metals and ice. Families lived in small stations, carving lives from the void. It was peaceful. Quiet. Not anymore. Admiral Kim had ordered the complete evacuation of the belt. Every civilian was pulled back to Earth or its orbital stations. The miners protested. Some refused to leave. Kim sent soldiers to force them. He could not explain why. The information was classified, but the real reason was simple. Kim was turning the asteroid belt into the largest weapon humanity had ever created. Engineers worked around the clock, installing kinetic launch platforms on thousands of asteroids. Each platform carried tungsten rods the size of telephone poles. When accelerated to high speeds, these rods could punch through starship armor like bullets through paper. But the rods were not the real weapon. The asteroids themselves were. Dr. Bayek had calculated everything perfectly. The platforms would not destroy Vaxar ships directly. Instead, they would destabilize asteroid orbits. Thousands of rocks, some as large as mountains, would begin moving in carefully calculated patterns. When the Vaxar fleet entered the belt, they would face a storm of debris moving at unpredictable angles. It was not elegant. It was not honorable. It was a trap designed to kill as many enemies as possible. Jiwoo Park returned to Earth 3 days before the Second Armada was expected. She was the only survivor of the Titan mission. The rescue ship found her floating in a disabled escape pod, nearly dead from cold and oxygen deprivation. They brought her to a hospital. Doctors said she needed rest. Kim said he needed her. She was promoted to captain and given command of a new ship, the Hongildong, a carrier equipped with experimental weapons and a crew that had nothing left to lose. Jiwoo accepted the command. Sleep was impossible anyway. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dae-jin smiling at her through the escape pod window. The Vaxar Second Armada arrived exactly on schedule. 1,200 warships appeared at the edge of the solar system, their hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. Leading them was Warlord Kreth, a legendary commander who had conquered 23 worlds. Kreth had studied the Battle of Luna. He understood that humans were tricky, dangerous, but he also understood numbers. 1,200 ships against less than 100 human vessels. The outcome was certain. He ordered his fleet forward at maximum speed. Earth would fall within days. Admiral Kim watched the enemy fleet approach. His officers were nervous. Some were terrified. Kim remained calm. He had prepared for this moment. Every ship was in position. Every weapon was ready. Every soldier knew their duty. When the Vaxar fleet reached the asteroid belt, Kim gave a single order. Now! The belt exploded into chaos. Launch platforms activated simultaneously, firing thousands of kinetic projectiles. The rods hit asteroids with carefully calculated force. Huge rocks began moving, their orbits destabilized. At first, the Vaxar shields absorbed the impacts. Kreth was not worried. His fleet had faced asteroid fields before. But then the cascade began. One asteroid hit another. That asteroid hit 3 more. Those hit dozens. Within minutes, thousands of massive rocks were moving in every direction. The belt had become a chaotic debris storm that no computer could predict. Vaxar ships collided with rocks moving at impossible speeds. Shields failed under sustained bombardment. Formations broke apart as captains tried to avoid collisions. The ordered fleet became scattered and confused. That was when Earth's fleet attacked. Human ships knew the belt intimately. They had studied every rock, every orbit. In the chaos, they appeared like ghosts, firing experimental weapons and vanishing behind asteroids before the Vaxar could respond. Jiwoo led her carrier group in a flanking maneuver. The intelligence from Titan had shown that the planet cracker weapons were stored in a supply ship at the rear of the fleet. If they could destroy that ship, they could eliminate the existential threat to Earth. 20 ships followed her on the high-risk approach. Enemy fire was intense. Ships exploded around her. The Hong Il-dong took hits that would have destroyed most vessels. But it kept flying. They reached the supply ship. It was massive, 3 times the size of any human vessel. Defended by 40 warships, Jiwoo looked at her crew. They were young. Most were survivors of Mars. They all knew this was probably their last battle. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. They attacked. The battle was vicious. 14 of Jiwoo's 20 ships were destroyed in the first 5 minutes. But the survivors kept pressing forward. They used old tactics from ancient naval warfare. Magnetic harpoons pulled ships together. Marines cut through hulls with plasma torches. They boarded the enemy like pirates. Inside the supply ship, Jiwoo led 300 Marines through corridors designed for beings twice their size. Vaxar defenders fought desperately. The corridors became killing zones. Bodies piled up. Human and alien blood mixed on the metal floors. Jiwoo's Marines adapted. They formed shield walls using torn hull plates. They used explosives to collapse corridors behind them. They fought with knives when bullets ran out. After 3 hours of fighting, they reached the weapon storage. The planet crackers were enormous machines that could generate seismic waves strong enough to tear worlds apart. Each one was worth more than an entire planet. Jiwoo planted charges throughout the bay, not to destroy the weapons cleanly, but to overload their containment systems. The resulting explosion would vaporize everything within 10,000 kilometers. She set the timer for 10 minutes and ordered her Marines to evacuate. Most would not make it. The Vaxar had reinforcements flooding the corridors, but some might survive. Jiwoo stayed behind to make sure the charges were not disarmed. A Marine named Kyung-soo stayed with her. He refused to leave his captain. With 3 minutes left, Vaxar soldiers broke through their defenses. Kyung-soo held them off while Jiwoo protected the charges. He died with his finger on the trigger, taking a dozen enemies with him. Jiwoo was alone with 1 minute remaining. She thought about Mars, about Daejin, about all the people she had failed to save. At least this time she would succeed. Then someone grabbed her arm and dragged her into a maintenance shaft. It was one of her Marines, a woman named So-yeon, who had refused to evacuate. She pulled Jiwoo through the ship's guts, racing against time. They reached an airlock with 15 seconds to spare. So-yeon threw Jiwoo outside and sealed the door. The ship exploded. The blast was brighter than the sun. When Jiwoo's vision cleared, the supply ship was gone. 40 escort vessels were gone. The planet crackers were gone. So-yeon was gone too. Warlord Kreth watched his fleet disintegrate. The asteroid trap had destroyed over 300 ships. The human attacks had crippled 200 more. Now his precious planet crackers were destroyed. For the first time in his career, Kreth felt something new, uncertainty, perhaps even fear. Then Dr. Bayek activated the final weapon. Small drones, invisible to Vaxar sensors, had infiltrated the enemy fleet during the chaos. Each drone carried a biological weapon, a virus designed specifically to target Vaxar physiology. The drones released their payload. Within hours, Vaxar crews began experiencing symptoms: confusion, paranoia, physical breakdown. Some ships went silent, their crews dead or incapacitated. Others turned on each other in virus-induced madness. Kreth realized he had two choices: continue fighting and lose everything, or retreat and live with the shame. He chose survival. The Vaxar fleet jumped to hyperspace, abandoning hundreds of disabled ships and thousands of soldiers still alive on damaged vessels. Earth had won. But the cost was terrible. Of 98 ships that fought in the battle, only 17 remained operational. Casualties exceeded 500,000. Mars was still dead. The asteroid belt was unstable and would be dangerous for centuries, but humanity had survived. They had faced an empire that conquered worlds and sent it running. The message was clear: attack Earth and you will regret it. The stars had always seemed peaceful. For 30 years, humanity looked up at the night sky with hope, wondering what friends they might find among the distant suns. They had been so naive. Admiral Daewon Kim stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station, watching Earth rotate slowly below. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Those eyes had seen too many simulations, too many war games that his superiors called paranoid. They told him the galaxy was peaceful. They told him Earth had nothing to fear. They were wrong. The alarm started screaming at 600 hours. Red lights flashed across every console. Kim's hands moved automatically, pulling up the sensor data. What he saw made his blood run cold. 300 ships, massive warships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. They appeared out of nowhere, tearing holes in space itself as they entered the solar system. Their hulls were dark metal, covered in weapons that humanity had only theorized about. The Vaxar Dominion had come to Earth. On Mars, Lieutenant Jiwoo Park was having breakfast in the colony cafeteria when the lights went out. She was young, only 24, with short black hair and quick reflexes. The backup generators kicked in, but something was wrong. Through the dome's transparent ceiling, she saw lights in the sky. Bright, terrible lights. Her communicator buzzed. Her commander's voice was shaking. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill, Jiwoo ran. Around her, 50,000 colonists were trying to understand what was happening. Children cried. Adults shouted questions. Nobody had answers. Then the first plasma bolt hit the northern dome. The explosion was beautiful and horrifying. The dome shattered like glass and the thin Martian atmosphere rushed in. Jiwoo watched people being sucked out into the freezing void. People she knew. People she had eaten breakfast with 5 minutes ago. She sealed her helmet and kept running. There was nothing else she could do. Back on Earth, Dr. Hannah Baek was in her laboratory when the emergency broadcast began. She was a scientist, brilliant and dedicated, who had spent 15 years studying alien technology from the few peaceful species humanity had met. Her hands froze over her keyboard as she listened to the message. Your species ends today. 4 words. That was all the warning humanity received. Hannah pulled up the defense network feeds. Mars Colony Prime was gone, just gone. 50,000 people dead in less than an hour. The Vaxar ships were moving toward the asteroid belt now, destroying everything in their path. Mining stations, research outposts, even the small family-owned ships that prospectors used. They were not here to conquer. They were here to exterminate. Admiral Kim mobilized every ship Earth had. It was not many. Humanity had built ships for exploration, for science, for peaceful trade with the alien species they thought were friends. The fleet had 47 combat-capable vessels. Against 300 Vaxar warships, it was suicide. But Kim had no choice. If they did nothing, Earth would burn. Ambassador Tae-Jin Cho was already on the quantum communicator, desperately calling the Tri-Nexus Alliance headquarters. The alliance was supposed to maintain galactic peace. 12 species working together, sharing resources and knowledge. Earth had been applying for membership for a decade. Surely they would help. Surely they would send their fleets to stop this massacre. The Alliance representative appeared on screen. It was a Keltherin, an insect-like being with multiple eyes and a translator device on its throat. The Keltherin listened to Cho's plea. Then it spoke. Earth is not a full member of the Alliance. We cannot intervene without unanimous council approval. The matter will be discussed at our next session in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Mars had fallen in 3 hours. Cho tried to stay calm. He explained that millions would die. He begged. He offered resources, technology, anything Earth had. The Keltherin's face showed no emotion. That was when Cho realized the horrible truth. They were going to let humanity die. The first major battle happened near Jupiter. Admiral Kim had positioned his fleet in the gas giant's gravity well, hoping to use it as an advantage. The Vaxar came in fast and confident. They had every reason to be. Their ships had shields that absorbed Earth's missiles like raindrops. Their weapons could punch through human armor like paper. In the first hour, Earth lost 33 ships. Over 20,000 sailors dead. Kim watched the casualty reports scroll across his screen and felt something break inside him. This was not war. This was execution. But humanity had one advantage the Vaxar did not expect. Humans were very, very good at learning from failure. Dr. Bayek had been studying the battle data in real time. She noticed something. The Vaxar shields were strong, but they all operated on the same frequency. They were networked together, sharing power and coordination. It made them efficient. It also made them vulnerable. She worked for 18 hours straight, not sleeping, barely eating. Her team of programmers and engineers worked beside her. They built a virus, not a normal computer virus. This was something special. Something that would make the Vaxar shields think their own ships were enemies. The problem was delivery. They needed to get the virus into the Vaxar network. That meant getting close. Very close, Ambassador Cho volunteered. His diplomatic career was over anyway. The Alliance had abandoned Earth. He might as well die doing something useful. 6 other people joined him. A stealth ship. A suicide mission. They launched toward the Vaxar fleet while Admiral Kim kept the enemy distracted. It took 3 days to get close enough. 3 days of watching Earth's defenses slowly crumble. 3 days of listening to distress calls from stations and ships that nobody could save. Finally, they were in position. Cho transmitted the virus directly into the flagship's communication array. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then every Vaxar shield in the fleet started glowing red. The ships began firing on each other, their systems corrupted, unable to tell friend from enemy. Admiral Kim did not waste the opportunity. He ordered every remaining ship to attack. The Battle of Luna had begun. It would be remembered forever as the day humanity refused to die quietly. Jiwoo Park fought her way through the ruins of Mars Colony, rescuing survivors where she could. She saw things that would haunt her forever. Bodies floating in the void, children's toys drifting through empty corridors, the smell of burned metal and death. But she also saw something else. She saw humans helping each other, strangers forming rescue teams, engineers fixing broken systems with whatever they could find. People who had every reason to give up but did not. That was when Jiwoo understood. The Vaxar had made a terrible mistake. They thought destroying human ships and stations would destroy human spirit. They were wrong. Every death made the survivors stronger. Every loss made them more determined. The Vaxar had come to Earth expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and terrible. They had reminded humanity why it had survived every disaster in its violent history. Humans knew how to hate. Humans knew how to fight. And when pushed to the edge of extinction, humans knew how to do absolutely anything to survive. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant. 1 year after Operation Nemesis, the galaxy had achieved an uncomfortable peace. Earth controlled its local region with undisputed military superiority. The Vaxar Dominion maintained a tense ceasefire, rebuilding their shattered fleets. The Trinexus Alliance debated endlessly about the human question, but peace was fragile. Across hundreds of worlds, alien species asked the same questions. Could humans be trusted? Were they natural warriors or victims of circumstance? Would they eventually dominate through force? Nobody had good answers. Admiral Daewon Kim was now a legend. Statues stood in his honor. Children learned his strategies in school. Politicians praised his leadership. But Kim himself struggled with the weight of his decisions. He sat in his office late at night looking at casualty reports he had memorized. Over 3 million humans dead. Countless alien casualties. Technologies unleashed that could never be forgotten. Tactics employed that civilized species called barbaric. Dr. Beck visited him one evening. She found him staring at a hologram of Mars colony before the attack. Children playing in the domes. Families having dinner. Normal life that no longer existed. We won, Kim said quietly. But did we lose ourselves in the process? Beck sat down beside him. She understood his guilt. She had designed the biological weapons. The viruses that killed in horrible ways, the nanites that disassembled living tissue. She had nightmares too. We are what the galaxy forced us to become, she said. They attacked us for being weak. Now they fear us for being strong. Maybe someday we can find balance. But first we must ensure our survival. Kim nodded slowly. He knew she was right. But knowing something was necessary did not make it easier to accept. Captain Jiwoo Park commanded the newest class of warship humanity had built. The Remembrance, named for those lost at Mars. It was powerful, fast, and equipped with weapons that made older ships look like toys. Jiwoo had become a symbol. The soldier who survived impossible odds. The hero who led humanity to victory. But she hated the fame. She remembered too clearly the people who died, the friends she failed to save. During a routine patrol near former Keltharan territory, her sensors detected a distress signal. A civilian transport under attack by pirates, Keltharan civilians, the same species that had helped the Vaxar attack Earth. Her orders were clear. Human interests only. Do not engage unless Earth citizens are threatened. Let the Keltharans solve their own problems. Jiwoo looked at the sensor readings. She thought about Mars, about revenge, about all the reasons she had to let those aliens die. Then she thought about something else. She remembered being rescued after Titan, how So-Yan had refused to leave her behind, how Dae-Jin had given his life so she could live. Humanity had fought to survive, but if they lost their compassion in the process, what had they really saved? She gave the order. Attack the pirates. Protect the civilians. The Remembrance destroyed the pirate ships in minutes. Jiwoo escorted the damaged transport to safety. The Keltharan captain thanked her with obvious surprise. I thought you would leave us to die. We helped attack your world. Why save us? Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. Then she answered, your government made that choice. Not you, not these civilians. We fought to survive, not to become monsters. Maybe there is hope for peace between our peoples. The incident caused controversy on Earth. Military hardliners called it weakness. They said showing mercy to former enemies would be seen as vulnerability. But diplomats saw opportunity. Dr. Beck personally thanked Jiwoo in private. The action demonstrated that humanity had not lost its soul, that they could be both strong and compassionate. Officially, Jiwoo received a reprimand for disobeying orders. Unofficially, she received a medal. Then Warlord Kreth made his final mistake. Disgraced by his defeats, obsessed with restoring Vaxar honor, Kreth launched a desperate attack on human outer colonies. He knew he could not defeat Earth directly, but he could kill civilians. He could make humans hurt. The attack hit multiple targets simultaneously. Rebuilt Titan colony, mining stations in the Kuiper Belt, small settlements on moons throughout the solar system. Thousands of civilians died in the first hours, but Kreth had miscalculated. He thought humanity was the same species he had fought a year ago. He was wrong. Every colony now had military-grade defenses. Every civilian had emergency training. Earth's response was immediate and coordinated. Within hours, human fleets were hunting Kreth's scattered forces. Admiral Kim led the hunt personally. He was tired of war, but he would finish this. Jiwoo's task force cornered Kreth's flagship near Neptune. The Vaxar warlord refused to surrender. He transmitted a final message. He would die in glorious battle, as befitted a warrior of his station. Jiwoo did not give him that satisfaction. She boarded his ship personally, leading a strike team through the corridors. Kreth met her in the command center. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in battle scars. He laughed when he saw Jiwoo, a single human female. This was the warrior they sent to challenge him? The fight was brief and brutal. Kreth was stronger, but Jiwoo was faster, meaner, and filled with the rage of everyone who had died. She used every dirty trick human soldiers had learned over millennia. Feints, pressure points, weapons hidden in unexpected places. Kreth died not in glorious combat, but defeated by a single human soldier using techniques he considered dishonorable. Jiwoo broadcast his final moments to all Vaxar worlds. Not as a threat. As a lesson, your warlord came to finish us. He failed. This is the fate of anyone who threatens humanity. We offer you peace, but we will accept war. The Vaxar chose peace, not because they respected humanity, because they feared them. 6 months later, the Trinexus Alliance formally invited Earth to join as a full member. The summit was held on a neutral station. Representatives from all major species attended. Dr. Bayek represented Earth. She did not give the speech the Alliance expected. She did not express gratitude. She did not promise cooperation. Instead, she outlined Earth's conditions for membership: full reparations from the conspirator species, military restrictions on those who attacked Earth, guaranteed autonomy for human colonies, and most controversial, abandonment of the Alliance's cultural homogenization policies. The Alliance could accept different cultures, different values, different ways of thinking, or Earth would remain independent, surrounded by enemies, but free. The debate lasted weeks. Some species resisted, but reality was undeniable. Earth had military parity with most Alliance members and superior tactics. The choice was partnership on human terms or endless conflict. The Alliance agreed. 20 years later, Earth had transformed again. Human colonies spanned dozens of systems. The fleet numbered thousands of ships. Diplomatic relations with most species were cordial, though wary. Admiral Kim retired, his legacy secure but controversial. He spent his final years writing memoirs, trying to explain the impossible choices he had made. Dr. Beck continued serving as Earth's ambassador. She became known as the Peace Architect, negotiating treaties that balanced human security with galactic cooperation. She never forgot the weapons she designed, but she chose to build bridges with the same determination she had used to build bombs. Admiral Jiwoo Park commanded the Frontier Fleet. She mentored young officers, teaching them that strength without compassion was tyranny, but compassion without strength was suicide. In Alliance military academies, the human wars became required study, not as a cautionary tale about human savagery, but as a lesson in the cost of underestimating potential. The Vaxar Dominion, humbled but not destroyed, became one of humanity's closest allies. They respected strength above all else. Earth had demonstrated strength beyond measure. As for humanity, they were forever changed. More cautious, more pragmatic, but also more confident. They had faced extinction and refused to die. They had been underestimated and proved everyone wrong. The galaxy had tried to teach humanity fear. Instead, they learned what happens when you threaten a species that views war not as conquest, but as survival. A species willing to sacrifice everything to live. A species that, when pushed to the edge, becomes something no civilization wants to face. The galaxy learned what true fear meant, and humanity never forgot the lesson either.